welcome back to On the Bench with Columbus Wire TV. And Blue Jackets fans, the NHL All-Star Game is over, so the second half of the season begins, and that's crunch time in the NHL, and so we bring our crunch time expert in, Dave Seaman. Dave, the Blue Jackets right now are 24, 22, and 5. All right, is this a playoff team?
No, absolutely not. They were a playoff team the first 20 games of the season, and then December came and they decided to take a month off. They took 6 weeks off, and just like last season, it's really put the Jackets behind the 8 ball. In order for the Jackets to be a playoff team at this point right now, you have to win two out of every 3 games. And I mean, when you look back to the first game after the All-Star break, the game against Chicago, I saw a team that did not have the hunger, did not have the desire.
Okay.
However, they come back 2 nights later and shut out the Detroit Red Wings in Joe Louis Arena. So it's hard to tell. I mean, in my heart, I would say, yeah, anything's possible. Sure, this is a playoff team. But when you look at the numbers, when you look at the teams you have to jump, the fact that you're 6 points out of a playoff spot with 30 games to play, it's not going to happen.
You don't hear shutout in Joe Louis Arena very often.
First time for Columbus in franchise history.
You heard it here first. All right, now with the trade deadline looming 3 weeks away, what sort of moves do you think that this team is looking to make, or what are you hearing?
Well, let's be honest. The moves should have been made 6 weeks ago. The moves should have been made back in December, just like we talked about last time. You know, Scott Housen, maybe he doesn't have trade partners. And let's be honest here. You know, the Blue Jackets are sitting 14th out of 15th in the Western Conference. Who's going to trade with you?
Right.
You know, and we talked about who on this team do other teams want. But I personally haven't heard anything. But the issue right now is, are the Jackets buyers or are they sellers? And right now, this team, if they don't put together a streak in the next 2 weeks, they're definitely going to be sellers.
All right, well, let's talk about some 2 young players who have been really stepping up their game as of late, Grant Clitsome and Matt Calvert. I heard a lot about Matt Calvert and his play on the line with R.J. Umberger. Let's delve into that.
Well, and I mean, that is the reward of hard work. Matt Calvert, he came up, he's now played 11 games, actually the 12th game against Edmonton Saturday night, and he's doing the things that he needs to do to elevate his game. And you know, Christian Huselius, he was healthy scratched against the Red Wings. You know, he's back in the lineup the next night against Edmonton. So he is playing, and Scott Arniel's been juggling the lines a little bit. Calvert and Huselius have been back and forth, but Matt Calvert in 11 games has 3 goals and 2 assists, including 2 absolutely gorgeous goals, including one against the Chicago Blackhawks the other night.
We sort of talked about this the last time that we chatted, and that was Scott Housen and sort of maybe potentially being on the hot seat and maybe stepping up. Do you think he's doing and taking this team into the right direction?
I mean, he's making the right moves that he thinks that will make this team successful. And I mean, let's be honest, this team is significantly better than it was when Doug McLean was the general manager. So yeah, you know, Scott Housen's a lawyer. He's a very patient man. And you know, you can be critical of the guy. He has made great moves. I mean, when you think back to a couple trade deadlines ago when Adam Foote basically hightailed it out of town, he was able to go out and get a #1 draft pick, or a first-round draft pick, and R.J. Umberger is the guy that he used to trade to Philadelphia to get that pick. So, I mean, when you think about that, he's made some great moves. I mean, and another one right now that really, in my opinion, is standing out is the way he handled Anton Strawman last season. Strawman wanted a 2-year contract. He wanted all this money, and Housen was like, no, we're going to give you 1 year. And it's turning out to work wonders because Strawman's been scratched how many games now here recently? So Strawman has regressed as a defenseman, and that's why a guy like, we talked about Grant Clitsome, forgot to mention him. He's got a couple goals, he's got 6 assists, he's got 8 points in 9 games. So I mean, he's a guy stepping up. It's these young kids. John Moore was called up, made his NHL debut against the Oilers here Saturday night, and these guys are making an impact. So yeah, I think where I knock Housen is the fact that he hasn't done anything. He hasn't shown the fan base, hey, I'm not going to stand by this. But he's being patient. He's making smart moves, and We'll see.
Can't argue that.
Can't argue.
All right, well, once again, here we are talking about the consistency of the Blue Jackets, or lack thereof, up and down. What does this team need to do in order to get those, 2 or 3 wins out of the next, 3 games to sort of put them back maybe in the potential playoff picture?
I mean, it just comes down to having heart. Play with some pride. There was this rant that the former Chicago Blackhawks coach, his name slips my mind, but he was talking about doing it for the Indian, doing it for the crest. And there's been a little bit of talk lately about, well, maybe the Jackets need to do it for the Cannon.
Yeah.
These guys are making a lot of money. I mean, they're making more money than you and I will ever see in our lives.
Really?
Well, maybe you. She might, not me. I'm not as good looking. But anyway, my point is that, Scott Housen has signed these players to a lot of money. It's time to step it up and show what your abilities are. These are great players. They're the best hockey players in the world. Step up. Play consistently. They showed that they could do it the first 20 games of the season. They did it the week before the All-Star break, where they had a 5-game point streak going. They can do it. They got to put it together game after game after game.
It's not Groundhog's Day here at Nationwide Arena, but sometimes it kind of seems like it. All right, Dave, I cover a lot of basketball. You cover a lot of hockey. Ohio is struggling right now with some of their professional teams, so I'm going to ask you, who do you think is the worst team?
Cleveland, the Cavaliers. They have the NHL or NBA's worst losing streak of all time.
Yeah.
I mean, the Blue Jackets are a 500 hockey club right now.
Right.
The Cavs, it's amazing what happens when one player goes to Miami.
I'm sold.
What do you have to say about that?
I'm sold. I can't argue that. All right, well, we will bring you so much more in a few weeks on the Columbus Blue Jackets. And for On the Bench with Columbus Wire TV, I'm Ashley Ignelzi, and he's Dave Seaman.